Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and another part of this experiment where we're seeing how long it would take a tier 22 team to reach the top flight, win the league and the Champions League. I have a feeling it might take quite some time. Now today's video is sponsored by the OneFootball app. You can see them just down here. Make sure you download that app using the link in the description to get all the information you could possibly need for the new season as it's just begun. Now today, in this video, we are going to go forward 20 years into the future, indiscriminate of what they might have achieved. And we're just going to see if they have finally managed to make it into the Premier League properly and anything else that they might have done. Now you can see last time out, I can't remember if I showed this, but they did get relegated from the Championship, finishing bottom by 4 points. So they've got a long way to go to get into the Premier League and then to hold their position as well. This database moving so slowly. I have removed all of the lower leagues for those of you who were wondering, but the problem is that the game just moves this slowly when you're this far ahead because it has so much data to recollect or recall from the game. Now you can see they did make it into the Championship. They got relegated though last season, so they still need to get up into the Premier League. I'm going to throw buckets of cash at this club from this point on. I'm not going to bother to record how much because it might be every season that I do it. Yeah, I just wanted to show you these stats. Somebody wanted to see the facilities at the last episode. I'm going to put this up to 860 million. I'm going to do that constantly until they start to do well. But here are the facilities: 14 and 12 for training and youth, 8 and 8 for coaching and recruitment as well. Just 1 for corporate facilities. They do need a new stadium. I don't know how long that's going to take, but I'm not going to mess with anything else. This is purely about giving them as much money as we possibly can and seeing what they can achieve. So let's go 20 years into the future and see how they've got on. Now when we left off last time, Fairwarp had been relegated to League One. If we go forward a year though, you can see they did manage to win the league, but only by 1 point. They were still 19 points clear of 4th place. They were in a good position to get promoted and well clear of Yeovil Town as well. So they did manage to get promoted back up into the Championship. If we have a look at this table and go back to the 47-48 season, and then go forward one, you can see they managed to finish in 8th place the next year. A good way off the playoffs, to be fair there. They were about 8 points away from that, even further from the top. The next season though, they managed to drop down to 15th. That is not a good result. Before then climbing back up to 9th, definitely becoming a bit of a Championship team. And I was still throwing loads of cash at this club, so this is nothing to do with me, this is everything to do with them. I would imagine I've given them about £8 billion between where we left off and where we are now 20 years ahead. So 8th place, and then they did manage to get promoted in 2nd place, just behind Brighton by 3 points. So that put them up into the Premier League. And this is how the table looked before that. You can see Dagenham and Redbridge here did get relegated. They managed to get all the way up into the Premier League. And then Fairwarp got relegated straight back down to the Championship, which is really frustrating, finishing a good 12 points off the top. So they're not doing particularly well at the moment. And when they were back down, they did manage to finish as champions, 1 point clear of Wolves and only 6 points clear at 4th place, 4 points clear of the playoffs as well. So in a good position. And on returning to the Premier League, they only got 37 points, but that was still 4 points clear of relegation. So they managed to survive the drop. Very few teams doing well. Newcastle winning the title though, 11 points clear at the top. The following season, they managed to finish 14th, before then finishing 14th for a 2nd year in a row. And then 5 points were taken from Fairwarp for budget violation. So they are still spending huge amounts of cash, but it's not helping them. And if anything, it's making the situation worse. They got relegated to the Championship. I'm not going to drop down to that table because they did manage to come straight back up. 47 points this time, and then the next year they managed to finish in 6th place, their highest ever finish there. They were only 6 points off the Champions League, a very good position, and the following season they dropped down to 10th, so despite a high finish they couldn't hold on to it. 40 points, 3 teams on 40 points at the bottom there, but already safe by the final day. And then up to the most recent season, they are still in 14th place and have not really progressed very much. They've managed to consolidate themselves as a Premier League team, but that is all that they've managed to do. It's really disappointing, given how much money they've had. Now, if we look at their details, you can see finance-wise, they've still got loads of cash in there, 600 million at the moment. I've given them so much money. Facilities-wise, near perfect now. They are getting in a much better place. 26,000 capacity Fairwarp Stadium. If we look at their general information, or their facilities rather, you can see their new stadium was only built 6 years ago. It could be expanded to a pretty good position. If we have a look maybe at their facilities details, yeah, it's got an expansion capacity of up to 60,000, so I'm sure that will get much bigger, but at least they finally have a new stadium, and that might help them grow and develop as a team if we keep giving them more money now, because that was a huge limiter on the gate receipts, financial fair play and things like that. Now, if we look at their senior squad schedule, just going back over the last 20 years, go back to the 46-47 season, and drop a couple of these leagues. Obviously, it's got all of the leagues in here, which is a little bit frustrating. But if we drop out the Championship and the Premier League, then that will just show their cup competitions. You can see they're in the Carabao Cup, only made it to the second round and got knocked out of the FA Cup. The following year, got League One as well, haven't they? Rather frustratingly, going all the way down to League One. But Checkatrade Trophy went reasonably well, made it to the South third round before losing on penalties. Fourth round of the FA Cup, lost to Liverpool. So a decent couple of cup runs. Terrible the following season. Not so great the next season either. Or the year after that, losing to Sutton, losing to Cambridge, losing to Villa and Colchester. This is pretty miserable, it has to be said. They were not a giant by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just looking for one decent cup run here. They did make it to the fifth round that year, but we're up to more recent times now. So here we go, we have a decent cup run for once. They made it through the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup on penalties. In the semi-finals, drew with Watford 1-1, and in the return leg, won 2-1 to get to their first ever major cup final. And they also got through in the third round of the FA Cup, but they lost to Arsenal 3-1 in the final. Junior Amiobi scoring twice in that, after they took a 4th-minute lead as well in front of 90,000 fans, but it wasn't enough. They did get through to the 5th round of the FA Cup, managed to beat Liverpool at home 2-1, and then beat Fulham 3-2, an 83rd minute winner in the quarter-final. Beat Derby on penalties to make it to the final, but in extra time they lost to Aston Villa, and so 2 cup finals in the same year. Not brilliant for them, but they did qualify for the Europa League, and they did very well here. Lost to Bruges 2-0 away, but managed to win 3-0 in the return leg at home, including a 110th minute winner in extra time. They then beat CSKA Moscow 6-2 on aggregate, 2-3-1 wins. Beat Bilbao 2-0, and then drew 1-1 away from home to get to the semi-finals of the Europa League. Beat Arsenal 3-1 away from home, drew 0-0 at home, so they're into the Europa League final. Can they win a European competition Fairwarp from the 22nd tier to the Europa League final? And they lose 1-0 to AC Milan. A really disappointing defeat there. That's 3 cup finals in 2 seasons that they've lost. And the following year they go back to normal, not progressing very far in either of the next 2 years. So not brilliant, all of that. If we look at their senior squad and just sort them perhaps by value and wages, you can see value-wise there is a lot of value in the team. Not that much, actually. A lot of £20-odd million players, but I mean, it's a decent squad. They should be doing a lot better than they are, to be fair. And if we look at their wage budget, they're on huge wages, which might be why they're failing financial fair play. So that's not too brilliant. If we look at their transfer history, going back through the years, bearing in mind I've been pumping so much money into this club, words can't do justice to how much they've had available. So we're just going to go for here. You can see £104 million spent in the Championship there, and then they were reined back in by fair play. It comes in spikes: £74 million spent, £126 million spent, £170 million spent, £214 million spent. That's about £500 million in 5 years. And then they had to rein it back in, money going out of the club to try and make up with financial fair play. Then 158 million spent, 135, pretty normal year, 77, 95 spent, and that takes us to the most recent time. And financial fair play is the thing that has changed in the last couple of years, which has made it nearly impossible to make these teams win with money alone. They just cannot do it, and it's really frustrating because we've put billions into this club and they have spent billions, and yet they haven't managed to establish themselves very well as a top of the table Premier League team. So I don't really know what to do from here. That is everything that I can show you to do with Fairwarp. We're into the year 2067. We've gone 50 years into the future. They've made it to the Premier League. They seem to have reasonably established themselves as a Premier League team, but they haven't kicked on from there. So I don't know whether to do another part of this series. You guys are going to have to let me know. Drop a like on the video if you would like to see them go 20 more years into the future. I think that probably would be the very last one. So do drop a like on the video if you'd like to see one more part. And make sure you subscribe if you're new around here. This has been a fun series to do. If you like this series, there will be more to come. I've already started on my next experiment, so hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. But until next time, see ya.